If you want to win battles in Pokemon Champions, your team matters. But with so many options out the gate and so little box space to use, it's hard to choose which Pokemon are worth it. But I've picked out 30 of the best Pokemon to get you started on your journey. Whether you're building your first team or you're a seasoned pro, this list should give you a solid head start. So let's jump right in. And starting off our list is Charizard. So the way I'm going to be breaking down these lists is I'm going to be grouping the Pokemon by what I think their role is in Pokemon Champions, and this first group is going to be your Mega slot. And Charizard is no slouch. This might be one of, if not the greatest Mega Evolution of all time, with Mega Charizard Y. So Mega Charizard Y gets the ability Drought, which sets the Sun Weather effect after it Mega Evolves. It also gets a huge special attack bump, making it a crazy strong Pokemon, allowing it to set the Sun for its own Stab Fire moves, giving it a 1.5 damage booster. This Pokemon is fantastic to build around, and once we get the Paradox Pokemon back, I think it's going to become one of the most pivotal weather setters of all time. Moving on to our next Pokemon, we have Metagross. Metagross is a Steel Psychic type that has a massive amount of attack and defense, and this is going to be our next Mega Evolution going into Mega Metagross. Mega Metagross is pretty much the same Pokemon, except it gains the ability Tough Claws, and it gets a nice bump to its speed, going from 70 to 110. It also gets a healthy bump into its attack and defense, making it even bulkier and hit even harder. This Pokemon also got a move pool buff, gaining Psychic Fangs to break through screens, and getting the attack Heavy Slam. This Pokemon is heavier than most other Pokemon, so that will be dealing max damage. Our next Pokemon is also one that's a high contention for being the strongest Mega Evolution, which is Gengar. So Gengar is already a pretty fast special attacker and has a great ability in Curse Body. But when it Mega Evolves, it gets a huge bump to its speed and special attack at 170 and 130, but the main point of this Pokemon is its ability Shadow Tag. Shadow Tag is an ability that locks in your opponent's Pokemon unless they're ghost types. That means they cannot switch out and they can't switch anything in. This is fantastic for setting up a favorable board state, and if Gengar likes what it's sitting in front of, it makes it so easy to take out opposing Pokemon and stop Fake Out cycling or Intimidate cycling. Mega Gengar is probably one of the most useful, if not one of the harder ones to use, and it will be seen on teams like Perish Trap, so be ready for it. Our next Pokemon, and this one hasn't been confirmed yet, but I would be shocked if it doesn't make it, is Salamence. Now Salamence is one of those Pokemon that actually doesn't have to Mega Evolve, but I still set it as the Mega slot just because it's so dang good. In base form, Salamence gets access to the ability Intimidate, which lowers your opponent's attack, and it allows you to switch in and switch out so you don't have to Mega Evolve right away if you want to cycle it a little bit. Now looking at Mega Salamence, we get an overall good boost to pretty much everything that matters, a nice boost to attack, a great boost to defense, a nice little bump to special attack, and a good bump to speed. Notably though, Aerolate is the ability that Mega Salamence gets, which turns normal type moves into flying type moves, and gets a 1.2 times multiplier on the damage. Mega Salamence has access to moves like Hyper Voice and Double Edge, allowing it to take advantage of both the special attack and physical attack sides on the same set. I think this Pokemon is great either outside of Mega Evolution or within it, and so I think you can't go wrong. If this is available, you're gonna need to have this in your box day one. Next up, we have the Pokemon Kangaskhan. This is another Mega slot, and there's for good reason. In base, it has access to Inner Focus and Scrappy, and notably with Scrappy, it allows it to fake out ghost types. But moving on to Mega Kangaskhan, the reason why we're using it, it gets an awesome stat boost to everything except for HP as always, and importantly, it has the ability Parental Bond. So whenever Kangaskhan attacks, it actually gets to attack twice, but the second move is only 25% of the damage, meaning that in total, Kangaskhan every turn is doing 125% damage. It has access to moves like Sucker Punch, Double Edge for a great stab move, Fake Out, Power Up Punch is looking like it might be there. It looked like it came back. Overall, Kangaskhan might be one of the strangest ones in this list, but the results are there. This used to be a part of some of the greatest teams of all time in VGC history, and the fact that we're going to get to use it again 8 years later is unreal. Next up, we have our first new Mega Evolution, Mega Froslass. Now, this was a Pokemon that is not very impressive when it's in its base form, but the important thing is after after it Mega Evolves. So Mega Froslass is a brand new Mega Evolution, as I was saying, and it gets a crazy hike to its special attack and speed, but the most important thing here is it gets the ability Snow Warning. So it sets the Snow Weather effect, giving it a 1.5 multiplier to its defensive stat, so that 70 actually turns into a 105. On top of that, it's able to hit Blizzard for 100% accuracy and can set Aurora Veil for your team, making it a great supporting and offensive Mega Evolution. And for our final Mega Slot Pokemon, I selected Gardevoir. Gardevoir is a Fairy Psychic type with a great set of base abilities with Trace, Synchronize, and Telepathy. All of them have their niche uses. This Pokemon is another one like Mega Salamence where I think you really can use it in base form as well. It has a great special attack and a great special defense, making it pretty worthwhile, and I believe it's the strongest Fairy type attacker in this game, especially once it Mega Evolves, where it gets a gigantic boost to its special attack, a great boost to its speed. At 100 is a great speed tier, and 135 special defense. And what makes it so lethal, in fact, is because of its ability Pixelate. Similar to Aerolate, it turns normal type moves into Fairy type moves and gives them a 1.2 multiplier. Thankfully, Mega Gardevoir does have access to Hyper Voice, making those moves hit like a howitzer. Nothing is safe, no redirection, no protectors. Mega Gardevoir is for real. And if you're a Steel type, it does have access to Mystical Fire, making it very, very, very dangerous. Now, what would this list be without the perfect Pokemon, the true VGC GOAT, Incineroar? This Pokemon is truly one of a kind. It's in a category of its own, so I have it as an all-rounder here. It can fake you out. It has access to Intimidate. It has Parting Shot. It did lose Knockoff, but it lost Knockoff in a format where half the Pokemon are holding an item you can't knock off anyways, so it's not really that much of a nerf. It has awesome attack stats. You can do anything with this thing. You give it Safety Goggles, it's now immune to Rage Powder. You give it Assault Vest, it now has a great special defense. Defensive stat of 90 doesn't really hold water because it's intimidating everything else. There's just so much you can do. Will-O-Wisp, Flare Blitz, Darkest Lariat. It can do literally everything. This Pokemon paired with Grimmsnarl and Mega Gengar, I think is going to be one of the most frightening triple threats, as they're able to just bounce in and out and you can't move at all while you're getting Intimidate cycled, faked out, and Mega Gengar is just sitting there tearing you up. Incineroar is truly unstoppable. If you don't have this in the game day one, you are making a huge mistake. Alright, moving now on to our support roles. Our first one is Whimsicott. Now this is a speed control master, but it's also fantastic at disrupting your opponents. It has access to the ability Prankster, which is going to be the only one you're going to want to use, which allows it to use status moves at a +1 priority. That means it can use Tailwind at priority to set up your team. It can use moves like Encore or Taunt to disrupt your opponents, and on top of all of this, it can learn the move Sunny Day, so it can be a great weather setter in a pinch. Up next is our second priority Tailwind spammer, which is Talonflame. This is just a kind of a different version of Whimsicott with Prankster, where it has the ability Gale Wings. For Talonflame, when it's at full health, Gale Wings gives a +1 priority to all flying type moves. Talonflame's actually a little bit more offensive, allowing it to use moves like Brave Bird at priority and have huge hits and set Tailwind still, while also getting access to moves like Taunt, Will-O-Wisp. So I think if you're going for priority speed control, your choices are going to be between Whimsicott and Talonflame, and they're both great for their own reasons. Alright, next up is Clefable, which is our first redirection Pokemon that also has a good helping hand upside. It allows you to have space by using Follow Me to redirect your opponent's attacks. This Pokemon has access to moves like Icy Wind for speed control and Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam for nice fairy type damage. It's got a really respectable amount of bulk, so it can take a lot of hits as well, and Clefable actually just got a new Mega Evolution. I don't think you're going to want to use it. Maybe with Calm Mind it'll be worthwhile, but for now I think stick to Clefable as a support. It excels so well at that role. Having some solid redirection, especially with a fairy type, is going to be massive. Up next we have Pelipper. Pelipper is our rain setter and the focal point. It has access to Tailwind, it has access to Wide Guard, it sets its own rain for Weather Ball, making it a 100 base power water move that gets a 1.5 boost in the rain, and it's a stab move. So Pelipper actually does a surprising amount of damage. Don't let these stats fool you. And being able to just set the rain, switch in and out, it's just so phenomenal having that kind of weather control. Pelipper is one of the greatest support Pokemon in my opinion, and you'll see a Pokemon later on this list that it perfectly tunes with. Two Pokemon actually. Maushold is our next support, which is our second redirect user, but this one's a little bit different than Clefable. It actually has a really high upside in offense, and that's thanks to its move Population Bomb. So Population Bomb is an attack that goes up to 10 times with a 90% accuracy. You'll see this Pokemon hold Wide Lens a lot so that accuracy bumps up to 99%, allowing it to hit 10 times very reliably. It gets access to the ability Friend Guard, which reduces the damage that your partner Pokemon takes from incoming attacks, so it just being on the field is already a huge help. We've also seen Maushold run Super Fang to do 50% damage to big bulky Pokemon. Don't let the 75 attack fool you. Great support, great offensive upside, and redirection on top of that. Now everybody's favorite Gen 8 Pokemon, Grimmsnarl. This is the premier screen setter in my opinion. It also has access to moves like Taunt, Scary Face, Thunder Wave, so it can slow you down, it can stop you from setting up your own moves. It's immune to Prankster itself because of its dark typing, and it has access to the move Spirit Break, which is its signature attack, and it lowers your opponent, whatever Pokemon it hits, it lowers their special attack. It has a 120 base attack, making it a surprisingly big hitter. Grimmsnarl, I think, is going to be one of the strongest early Champions meta Pokemon as far as supports go, so definitely get this one in your game ASAP. Next, we have Sinistcha. This is going to be another fantastic support. You need to go get one immediately if you don't already have one. Sinistcha has access to the signature ability Hospitality, which when switched in, it actually heals its teammate for 25% of its health. This is phenomenal for big bulky Pokemon that like to set up. It gives you a chance to actually like switch in, switch out with something like Incineroar, so you can get Intimidates off and you can get healing off. Not to mention it also has access to Rage Powder, so it's able to redirect your opponent's attacks, further allowing that goal. It's a great Trick Room setter as well, and it has the signature move Matcha Gotcha, which is a spread grass type move that can burn the opponents and heals itself. It probably is the #1 support. I wouldn't be shocked if this ends up being the strongest support in the entire game, with Grimmsnarl kind of in like hanging in the area as well. These last two, you gotta have them. It's a non-negotiable. You need Sinistcha in Pokemon Champions immediately. All right, another support that is just phenomenal is Farigiraf. Farigiraf actually serves a very unique role, being a great Trick Room setter, but also a priority blocker, and that's with the ability Armor Tail. So Armor Tail blocks all priority moves. That includes Fake Out, Sucker Punch, Extreme Speed. If you click a priority move into Farigiraf's side of the board, you are not going through. That makes Farigiraf phenomenal for allowing Trick Room to go up in the first place, as a lot of people want to set Fake Out or Prankster Taunt, and Farigiraf shuts both of those down. The bulk and offense here are actually really incredible with a pretty good typing. Normal's actually a really good addition to the Psychic typing, so I very much enjoy this Pokemon. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of Farigiraf. We saw it a lot in Scarlet Violet, and for good reason, and you're going to keep seeing more of it in Champions. All right, this one, honestly, I might be going out on a limb saying that Rotom-Wash is a support, but I'm just going to stick with it because this was the closest thing I could align with it. It's got pretty great typing thanks to the ability Levitate, so it's an electric type that can't get hit by ground moves, but its bulk is actually where it's like pretty impressive. 107 defense and special defense is super good, even though it only has a 50 HP. But where this Pokemon really excels and why I did give it the support role is its enormous kit with moves like Will-O-Wisp to burn, Electro Web for speed control, and a little bit more of a special unique case. Often you'll see Rotom-Wash run the Choice Scarf item, and it'll actually use the move Trick to switch its Choice Scarf onto an opponent, locking them into whatever attack they had chosen for that turn. And if it doesn't want to do that, it can run Volt Switch, and it can just use Choice Scarf Volt Switch to get in and out and just be a great pivot Pokemon. I chose Rotom-Wash specifically because this is my favorite of all the Rotoms, but you could sub in something like Rotom Heat if you wanted to, because that one also gets a lot of use and has good specific reasons to be in. Our next Pokemon is Corviknight, and this was another one that I maybe shouldn't have called it a support, but it kind of felt like that again, just because you see it often running Tailwind and being a great switch pivot for the ability Mirror Armor. So Mirror Armor actually reflects status changes onto the opponent, so say an Incineroar switches out in front of it, instead of Corviknight getting intimidated, it'll actually reverse the Intimidate back into the opponent's side of the board, making it really, really powerful in that regard. You'll often see this Pokemon running Tailwind for speed control, or moves like Bulk Up or Iron Defense to set up its defense and offense. This can get out of control very quickly, making it extraordinarily scary for your opponent if they let it sit there for too long, thinking that it's a passive Pokemon. Corviknight fits on a lot of different teams as well. It's a great just option in general for plugging in, so that's why I included it on this list. All right, moving off of the supports, now we have our big bulky monsters. These are the offense and defense specialists. They do it all. And starting with Archaludon, I think this might be the scariest of the bunch. This is a Dragon Steel type that has access to the ability Stamina. So Stamina is an ability that raises its defense every time it's hit by an attack. Now look at that defense stat at 130. you can imagine how quickly that gets out of control if you're not able to take it out quickly. Even worse, it actually gets access to the move Body Press, making it able to use those defensive boosts on the offensive side. But the real piece de resistance is its signature move, Electroshot. So Electroshot is actually a charge move that takes 2 turns to activate. The first turn, it raises its special attack, and then on the second turn, it attacks. But if it's raining and the rain weather effect is up, Electroshot actually raises your special attack and attacks on the same turn, making it very, very scary. So this Pokemon has 2 ways to like snowball out of control. It can snowball out of control with its 125 special attack by just constantly raising that every turn, and it can snowball out of control with its 130 defensive stat, getting free boosts every time you hit it. You often see this Pokemon running something like Assault Vest as well, making it so that that 65 special defense actually ends up being around 97 or so. This thing is just a stat monster. You're really going to want to get your hands on this one if you don't already. All right, next up in our offense and defense group is Ursaluna, and this is really our Trick Room ace. This is one of the strongest Trick Room Pokemon that's ever been introduced, and that's thanks to its incredibly low speed, but also its ability Guts. So what Guts does is that when this Pokemon is burned, instead of lowering its physical attack damage, it actually gets a physical attack bump of 1.5, making that 140 attack stat even bigger. Made even worse is it gets access to the move Facade, which is a stab normal move that gets boosted when a Pokemon is inflicted by a status effect. You'll often see Ursaluna running Flame Orb to go ahead and induce its own burn on itself, so that way it can just barrel out of control while its partner Pokemon sets Trick Room, utilizing that 50 speed to destroy everything in its path. Next up, we have the big fish, Dondozo, everybody's least favorite Pokemon to go into, I would argue. With abilities like Unaware and Oblivious, it can either be non-intimidated or it can just ignore your opponent's stat boost completely, allowing it to set up with something like Curse or Order Up when we're talking about when it gets combined, making it absolutely daunting to go into because you're not able to set up on this Pokemon and do meaningful damage. You have to go through 150 HP and 115 defense. You can see this even doing like a Rest Dozo set where it can just heal itself all the way back up and then use Sleep Talk on top of that. There's a lot of different ways this Pokemon can be built. And when it's paired with Tatsugiri, it actually gets a ×2 multiplier Omni boost to every single stat. So take that entire stat bar down below that you're looking at and make it double. And that's what makes Dondozo really so scary because it's so great by itself and it's phenomenal when paired with Tatsugiri. This one's going to be a scary one. You're going to need to be ready. If you're not going to use this one, you need to be ready to go against this one. It can be horrifying. And as I was saying, here is the partner Pokemon, Tatsugiri, the one that sets up the Omni boost for Dondozo. When Dondozo and Tatsugiri are on the field at the same time, Tatsugiri actually goes into Dondozo. Dondozo puts it in its mouth and it gives it the Omni boost. You'll often see this Pokemon running something like Choice Scarf so that when Dondozo does inevitably go down, it's able to get rid of that 82 speed and make it something worthwhile so it can attack afterwards. It runs stuff like Muddy Water, Icy Wind, or even Draco Meteor to hit some big hits after it's become solo. Now, interestingly, Tatsugiri actually did get a Mega Evolution. That does give it quite the potential upside after Dondozo goes down, because once Dondozo goes down, Tatsugiri comes back out, and then you can Mega Evolve Tatsugiri to make it very, very scary. So I think Dondozo and Tatsugiri as a combo is definitely something you need in Champions Day 1. Moving on to our next offense and defensive piece is Kingambit. This Pokemon has the ability to Defiant. It turns stat drops into +2 buffs to its offense. So if something like Incineroar switches in and tries to intimidate Kingambit, it actually gets a +2 boost after the -1, giving it a net total of +1. This Pokemon likes to play head games with Sucker Punch and Swords Dance. When you think it's going to strike for Sucker Punch, it actually just set up itself for ×2 offense, and now you're going to have to deal with a very strong Pokemon that does not care about its speed. And now for our last offense and defensive powerhouse, we have the big bad Tyranitar. Everybody knows this Pokemon. It is excellent. It's always been good. It got access to the move Knockoff, which made it even more relevant in the past generation. It's also a weather setter as well, setting the Sand Weather effect when it enters the battle. The Sand Weather effect gives a 1.5 time multiplier to the special defense of rock types, making Tyranitar just that much bulkier. Tyranitar is another Pokemon that can Mega Evolve, and I actually actually would consider using this Mega Evolution. Its Mega Evolution has Sandstream as well, so if you get your weather interrupted, you can Mega Evolve to reset the weather, making it excellent for domination on the board state as far as weather control goes. Now we are moving on to our pure offensive Pokemon. For our first one, we have the ultimate partner to Tyranitar actually, which is Excadrill. And that's because it has access to the ability Sand Rush, which doubles its speed when the Sand Weather effect is active. Paired with its 135 attack, the 88 speed now gets doubled on top of that, making it extremely fast and extremely strong. Give this thing Focus Sash and now your opponents can't even take it out that easily, giving it a lot more sustain on the field and letting it ignore its pitiful defenses. Excadrill is actually another Pokemon that just got a brand new Mega Evolution that has the ability Piercing Drill, which allows it to break Protect for 25% damage rather than the usual 100 if they weren't protecting. I personally think Mega Excadrill does actually have some room to play, maybe not on a sand team. I think you might be able to do a hybrid sand team, but be ready. I do think some people are going to run Mega Excadrill, and this gives you the option of running it yourself if you bring it into Champions. Next up, we have Garchomp. Now this one you could argue is a bit on the offense and defense, but I like to run this thing very fast and very high offense with something like Choice Scarf or Life Orb, and just going for as big of damage as possible. Now the coolest thing about Garchomp is it actually has 2 Mega Evolutions now. It has regular Mega Garchomp from the past and the new Mega Garchomp Z. Mega Garchomp Z actually becomes a special attacker and gets a speed stat of 151, making it the fastest Pokemon, or at least tied for the fastest Pokemon in the game, which is horrifying. And it loses its ground typing, so I think having Garchomp in this game and bringing Garchomp with you into Champions is actually a 3-for-1 deal and can maximize box space, because I know that's going to be limited, so definitely grab yourself a Garchomp. Alright, up next is our second Pokemon that pairs great on rain teams, and that is Basculegion Male. So Basculegion Male has access to Swift Swim, which doubles its speed stat when it's in the rain weather effect. But what makes it so scary and why it's such a great late game sweeper is because of the move Last Respects. Last Respects is a ghost type move that gets stronger the more Pokemon on your team that are fainted. So if you're able to have an end game where Basculegion is up and the rain weather effect is going and all the rest of your Pokemon are KO'd, you are going to be one-shotting literally everything that isn't a normal type. Alright, next up we have our friend Dragapult. So Dragapult is a very fast ghost type dragon with 142 speed and access to the move Dragon Darts. Dragon Darts is a spread physical move that actually has smart targeting. Say your opponent protects, both of the Dragon Darts are going to go into the other slot. Say your opponent switches in a fairy type, both of the Dragon Darts are going to go into the other slot. Dragapult also loves choice items such as Choice Band, or if you run the very rare special variant with Choice Specs, and that's because it's just already naturally so fast. You can usually rely on Dragapult to outspeed your opponent in most scenarios, and getting that offensive boost on top of that is next level. Not to mention it also gets access to the move U-Turn, so if you don't like the board state for Dragapult, it can switch out at a moment's notice and reset what move you want to use for it. Up next we have Primarina, and it is probably my favorite fairy type attacker outside of Gardevoir, and that is because of the typing Water and Fairy. So Fire is a type that resists Fairy type moves, but thankfully Primarina has Stab Water to deal with those options. Not to mention that on the defensive side, Fairy is weak to Steel, but Water is resistant to it, which makes Steel types neutral. Primarina also has the ability Liquid Voice, which turns normal type moves into Water type moves, and paired with Hyper Voice and the held item Throat Spray, you can use a spread Water type move that also gives you a +1 special attack after using it thanks to Throat Spray. So I think Primarina, huge in my books, probably the strongest water type starter we've seen in the entirety of the game outside of like Gigantamax Blastoise, so definitely pick this one up. Alright, next up we have maybe the most hated Pokemon. This is Gambling the video game, Sneasler. Sneasler is so hated because of the signature move Dire Claw. So Dire Claw is an attack that has a 50% chance to either paralyze, put you to sleep, or poison you when you get hit by it, making it a grab bag of what am I going to be upset with? Poison being the least of your concerns, but if you get paralyzed, now your speed is just halved for the rest of the game, and even worse, if you get put to sleep, now you're just not moving. And Sneasler is one of the fastest Pokemon, especially after Unburden procs, and it has a numerous amount of ways to easily get its Unburden off. It can run White Herb with close combat to hit you and then have its stats lowered and then gain its stats back. If it gets intimidated, the White Herb removes the Intimidate debuff, so now it has its Unburden and proc. You can run normal gem to use fake out at a higher damage output. It gives a little boost, like a 1.5 boost, I think, and then it consumes the item, then procs Unburden. Or it can even run something like Focus Sash. It can take a hit. Once it gets down to 1 HP, now it becomes double speed, and it can just barrel out of control. Sneasler, unfortunately, I think is one of the least competitive Pokemon that they've ever introduced, but that's why it's so good. If you're gonna go against Sneasler, you might as well join everybody else and use it yourself. Well, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click the subscribe button, comment, like, and hype the video. All of these things help out so much. I'm gonna be making a ton of Pokemon Champions videos, so if you want to see more of this style, I hope you stick along. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all next time.